Alright, in this video we're going to examine a very critical concept in the plate tect topic, and that is the concept of plate boundaries. If you can't grasp this concept, you're going to find that you'll be very confused later on in the chapter. So without further ado, we have learned that there are two different kinds of plate types, right? So take note of the terminology when we say plate types. Typically, what we mean to say is that there are two main plate types, that is continental and oceanic, right? Typically, when my hand gestures go like this, I mean continental because it's thick. And then there's a thin oceanic crust, okay, that sometimes comes against the thick crust and subducts, right? You remember this. Now, that being said, that's plate types, right? But for this video, I want to talk about plate boundaries. Plate boundaries are really important to master because they are at the intersection of two different plates. And what happens at this intersection is really important. It gives rise to volcanoes, earthquakes, fault mountains. And that's why we talk about plate boundaries as something that affects the distribution of these different landforms. Okay? So what are plate boundaries? If you look at this map over here, what you see is that there's this black line that runs through various parts of the map. Now, these black lines are basically denoting the parts where the plates are coming either against each other or pulling away each other or sliding past each other, right? Now, let's look at the three different kinds of plate boundaries, okay? So the next slide shows you a plate boundary is the border between two plates, okay? The plate boundaries worldwide. And now the three kinds of plate boundaries, one, divergent, right? A divergent plate boundary is one where plates are pulling away from each other. Two, where plates push towards each other, we call them convergent. So divergent, convergent, and the last one is a transform plate boundary where they slide past each other. Alright? Now, we tend to associate each kind of plate boundary with a certain kind of landform. Okay? So, I'm going to move to this slide where there is a summary of the different kinds of plate boundaries there are. Now, divergent plate boundaries, we have oceanic divergence. Now, this gives rise to mid-ocean ridges. So, let me just write it in so it will be useful. Okay, so mid-ocean ridge would form where there's oceanic divergence. When we have continental divergence, the two continental plates are moving apart. What we have is a rift valley and block mountain formation. So I'll just write there as RVBM. It's a rift valley block mountain formation. Now, conversely, when we have plates moving towards each other, then we have convergent boundaries. We have three types of convergent boundaries. CC convergence leads to fault mountains. Okay. Ocean convergence leads to an island arc. Okay, island arc. Okay. An island arc is basically made up of volcanoes. Okay. And an oceanic continental convergence results in fault mountains and volcanoes. Okay, why did I not write in volcanoes into the slide right now is because volcanoes tend to occur together with other kinds of landforms. So, for example, a mid-ocean ridge tends to occur together with shield volcanoes. So I'll write here, volcanoes occur together with oceanic divergence. Whereas, stratovolcanoes tend to occur together with fault mountains at an OC convergence. So this is fault mountain plus stratovolcanoes. Now, then what about earthquakes? Where do earthquakes happen? Earthquakes happen at all of these three boundaries. Now, some people misunderstand that, earthquakes only take place at the third one. Now, that's not true. Earthquakes take place at all of these three boundaries, okay? And along the way, I'll explain what these three boundaries lead to. How do they form the different kinds of landforms.